Welcome to Standing on Business with Eric Foss. I'm your host, Eric Foss. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Standing on Business with Eric Foss. I'm your host, Eric Foss. All right, guys, today we're going to talk about something it's a big case. Well, it was a big case. It has to do with a lot that we talk about. It has to do with corruption inside a prison or jail, whatever you want to call it. It has to deal with a high-ranking leader who, when everything falls down, he winds up becoming an informant on his crew or his gang or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, guys, this happened in my city, Baltimore City. Let's get into the story of Tavon White, the BGF leader who wound up ratting out the rest of his people. Let me just read a little bit of back history on it for you, and then we'll get into it. Okay, just like right here. BGF leader Tavon White sentenced to 12 years in prison in Baltimore jail racketeering conspiracy. This was over Baltimore City Jail. Now, Baltimore City Jail is not what people think nowadays. They'll think central booking is Baltimore City Jail. Baltimore City Jail was shut down since 2015. I haven't been there since the 90s, but I've been in the real Baltimore City Jail. We have like steel side, things like that. So we'll get into that though. Okay, so this is the United States Attorney's press release after the federal sentencing. He previously was sentenced to serve 20 years in prison for a related state plea, which was an attempted murder that they ran concurrent with this. So he's been home. Okay. United States District Judge Ellen L. Hollander, that's my judge, sentenced Tavon White, a.k.a. Bulldog and Tay, age 37 of Baltimore today, to 12 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release for racketeering conspiracy arising from his running of operations of the BGF, Black Guerrilla Family, gang inside of Baltimore City Detention Center, BCDC. Okay. Racketeering. He had a RICO case. This was the BGF RICO down in Baltimore. I got some friends who actually went to prison on this. Okay. In connection with his federal guilty plea, White also pleaded guilty to a state charge of attempted murder for which he received a sentence of 20 years in prison, served concurrent with his federal prison. It's basically nothing because the 12 years eats up to 20. Believe the 12 federal will eat up 20 state. The sentence was announced by United States Attorney for the District of Maryland, Rod J. Rodenstein, Special Agent in charge of Stephen A. Voigt of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Secretary Stephen T. Moyer of the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, and Baltimore Police Commissioner Anthony W. Batts, and Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, which she's now under. She just got convicted with the feds anyway. Shows you the corruption in Baltimore. Okay. The case was developed as a result of the efforts of the Maryland Prison Task Force formed in 2011 with the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, and prosecutors. The task force has met regularly for over 3 years, generating recommendations to reform prison procedures and producing leads that have been pursued by state, local, and federal criminal investigators. Investigations are continuing. Now, this is all over with by now. According to his plea agreement, White had been a member of the BGF since 2000 and was in pretrial custody at Baltimore City Jail from 2009 to 2013. He became the lieutenant commander of the BGF, which is the Black Guerrilla Family, at BCDC, and then the commander in 2011. So at 2011, he's the head guy. Throughout his years at BCDC, White was involved with and often directed the smuggling of contraband into BCDC, including cell phones, tobacco, and drugs, through the services of correctional officers who received payments, gifts, and a share of the profits. Fellow BGF inmates and co-defendants also directed smuggling and often worked in concert with White. White admitted that he was personally involved in sexual relationships and impregnated 4 correctional officers. You heard me right, guys. He got 4 women correctional officers pregnant. Okay? Outside the prison facility, White and his closest BGF allies frequently used other people, including several co-defendants, to obtain contraband, hold it, or deliver it to the correctional officers for smuggling. 40 of the 44 defendants charged in the racketeering conspiracy have been convicted, including 24 correctional officers. 35 defendants pleaded guilty. Eight defendants went to trial, and 1 defendant has died. U.S. Attorney Rod Rodenstein recognized that efforts of the other members of the Maryland Prison Task Force, including the Maryland State Police, Prince George's County Police Department, United States Marshal Service, DEA, Washington, Baltimore, high intensity drug trafficking area. That's who got me. And Maryland coordinator and analysis center. Okay, so now let's get into this. Baltimore City Jail, like I was talking about, this is where Tavon White was doing his thing. This is not central booking. Central booking was made and opened in like 1994, 1995. I believe 1995 it was open, built in 94. And Baltimore City Jail has been shut down since 2015. Now, like I said, I haven't been there since the 90s, but even when I went there, it was a rough place. Let me tell you, Steel Side, you had sections like K section, nicknamed Killer K, J section, Jumpin' J, the O section was called the O zone. Back before we had central booking, what would happen was when we would get arrested, we would go to a police station and whatever district we're in, and we would see commissioner. If we don't make bail or whatever, they'd take us right over Baltimore City Jail. Sometimes it would be so packed we'd have to sleep in the gym floor. It was the JI gym, and as they said in a report, WDC, that's the Women's Detention Center, but it's always had men in it. You know what I mean? So it was always overcrowded and it was always violent, especially the hopper sections and things like that. When I say hopper, I mean the younger guys and stuff, because they had that. They had T section, and then I believe it became L section. Okay. So look, this place was always been crazy and stuff like that. But now, the BGF comes into power in Baltimore. That's just a fact. They became the most powerful gang in the system and also on the streets. So now what happens to him, and this is going to show what a bad person he is, and he was not a leader at all. I don't care what position he made it to. He's an idiot and a scumbag. But anyway, so here's what happens. He basically lands in a gold mine. All right? They made him the commander. That means he's calling the shots in the jail. Now, you've seen how he got the 4 women pregnant. They're correctional officers or whatever. Let me explain something to you. He was running the jail. A lot of the correctional officers are in the BGF. So in other words, he has rank over them. Okay, so you figure this guy's got it made. So now what they're doing is they're bringing in pills, they're bringing in weed, they're bringing in this, they're bringing in that. It's basically carte blanche. It's just coming right in. You don't have to do nothing. The police are working for you. But now what happens to somebody who's not a real boss or a leader? That power goes to his head. Okay? Now, here's what the guy's doing. Now, this is what I hear. All right? But it's the truth. He's making the place even more violent than it had to be. In other words, like this. Like I said, he can pull so much rank and stuff and, things like that. So no matter what was going on, I heard they were just treating certain people just certain type of ways. Like, I'm not talking about like rats and bad people who hurt kids and stuff. I'm just talking about people who aren't part of them or just like an outsider or whatever catches a case, he's in there. They're like they got all this stuff and they're like taking their chicken. And this is their actual food and stuff. Say a dude got smart with an officer, because these officers, especially these women, will start with these men, and say the dude's like, yeah, whatever, say an old head dude, whatever, and call her, and just walk away. Next thing you know, 12 o'clock at night, his cell's being opened by her. 4 dudes are running in there, ching, 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 ching. And then when he goes over to where PC is, the guy running that, is in the gang. Not on PC, he's the actual correctional officer. So this place was off the hook. When I say off the hook, I mean off the hook. Now, why was he doing things like that? Basically, here's the mistakes he was making. First off, it could have lasted a lot longer and maybe never been charged, because they got a lot of stuff going on. If he could have just kept the peace a little bit and didn't let the power go to his head. What I mean by that is, you don't think that one of these people that they hurt or treated, there was more than one, believe that, when they got out, they didn't report this to, or their families didn't report this to like the mayor or, just the police, whatever, the FBI. You understand? Because you have serious corruption there. What happened was these idiots, the correctional officers included, and him, they're thinking like they just run the world. No. You just had a lock on a jail and you fumbled it. That's what you did. So they're doing all this violent stuff, everything that did not need to be. It did not need to be. Like I said, it wasn't like hitting rats and stuff like that. And they were just treating people like dog crap. And that's the fact. So people wound up telling them. I said like this, when I heard the story about all that going on, I said, you know what? I said, they created the rats. What do you mean by that, E? Here's what I mean by that. Suppose there's a guy now who comes in and say he's facing 5 or 6 years or whatever, and he's not a rat, but he's like a cornball guy or whatever. He don't roll with a bunch of people. You don't know, you know, it's his first time. And he gets in there, obviously he's a little bit scared or whatever, but he's not telling or whatever. Now you taking his food, taking his chicken, doing this, and he's a good dude and all. He's probably thinking, oh my God, I got to go through 5 years of this, 6 years of this. He's going to go and tell, probably on his case, on other people. So you know what I mean? You were not helping the cause at all on that effect. And then they wound up telling on you. So let's get into that. So apparently, you know, with the stuff that was going on, people were really being hurt. People reported this. So the feds get, you know, a sniff at this. Now, let me explain something. The feds, they love busting state level police, politicians, things like that, because it brings headlines. Now, this really brought headlines. You know, a lot of people have heard about this. So now, when they come in, the feds come in and they drop the BGF indictment. And like you see, there was 44 defendants on it. Okay, so now some of the stuff doesn't have to do with the jail. I don't know if this was all the same indictment. It could all be, but they all stem from each other, you know, but I do believe it was the same indictment. But even if it was a different one, it's all related. But see, they get him. Now, what does he do? Now he's playing hard. He's playing with the big boys. Because that little 20 years that he was facing for the attempt in the state, that's nothing. That's nothing. He'd have been home quick on that. You know what I mean? But now he's probably facing that El Boogie, or at least another 20 years federally under the RICO. Like I said, the feds apply that RICO to everybody. Now, guess what? He wasn't as big as he thought when it came to the feds, because he was making a lot of money and stuff, more money he's probably ever seen in his life, and you know, more people, you know, looking up to him and everything like that. So you had a little run there. But guess what? You were still a peon, and the feds proved it to you. Because what did they do? They grabbed him. He didn't have money to fight them. And I don't even think if he did, he would have fought him, because he was a sucker. He flipped. He flipped right away. He told on the correctional officers. So now remember, this guy's top of the, that's how it works sometimes. Because I hear people say, no, they can't tell down. Yes, they can. He's the top of the food chain. He told on the correctional officers working for him. He told on other inmates. He told on his co-defendants. He told on everybody. Okay? He told on everybody. And like I said, he was the top of the indictment. There you go. Wound up getting 12 years from Hollander. Now, this lady Hollander, I don't know. She's a very liberal judge. She hates me. She gave me above my guidelines, and she made me max out everything, and I wasn't even supposed to be charged federally. Everybody else on my case, she gave them years below their guidelines. And I'm not talking about people who cooperated. I'm just talking about regularly. You know what I mean? But just for some reason, she denied my compassionate release. You'll see it it's on the internet. It's just my whole case. But anyway, so that was his judge. So that's how he went up with the 12 years, even after cooperating, after all the bad things that he did. So, like I said, he's been home. With the women, there's another thing in prison that if you go to jail now, it's called the Priia Act. It's called PREA, Prison R-Word Elimination Act. I don't know if I could say the R-word, but you guys know what that is. Okay, so you got that act. I heard, and then I looked it up, and nobody's disputed this, but if anybody else knows and I'm wrong, please let me know. But I heard that he used the Priia Act on the jail and the correctional officers, and I heard he sued them and got money for him getting them pregnant. Some of this stuff you can't understand, but in a way, if you break it down, you could say, well, yeah, they were the ones in position of power, so you could say, hey, I was being taken advantage of or whatever. But any which way you look at it, he's toast. Like, I'm talking about, obviously he's been home. I don't know where he's at. I haven't heard nothing about him. I'm from Baltimore. I'm still in Baltimore. Haven't heard nothing about him. I think that he wound up going into the witness protection program because he would have to. You cannot come back to Baltimore after this one. You just can't. You know, there's no way to get through there. But like, my point of all this is he was a dangerous idiot. He was not a leader. He was not a boss. I don't care what his rank said, because that was also disputed. Because like I said, I know some people and they're like, man, he wasn't, he just landed there at that time and he's the one, because remember, you're dealing in pretrial. So people are coming, they're not staying long. He was fighting a case. That's why he was there a long time. So people aren't really staying there long. So that's how he landed in that position of power. So, it's disputable what his real rank was. But when he got up there and testified, he actually got smart, and he still played tough and everything, but he was just like, he called the people who were, following him and the rest of his gang or whatever, he said that they were clowns and, they were real easy to manipulate and stuff like that. Which, all these rats, they, will do that. Like, they'll talk tough on the stand or whatever. But I mean, you're on the stand, buddy. But back to him. So he did that to the women, and out of that case, I do think a lot of the correctional officers, they got time. Well, everybody got time. Got like 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, stuff like that. Ruined their lives, basically. But like I said, they were in the BGF anyway, you know what I mean? And now they don't got a clean record. So actually, somehow, some way, and I'm not going to put it out there, some of them do still work in corrections. I will say that. I know that for a fact, but I won't put that out there. No names or nothing like that and where they're at. But maybe their situation, they didn't get convicted of certain things, or they got something reinstated, or maybe they cooperated. I don't know. But I know one of the baby's mothers is definitely still in corrections. So, not sure about how that's possible, but it did happen. But anyway, yeah, this guy was just terribly stupid. Like I said, he just landed in a position. He could have made a ton of money, which he did make a decent amount. He could have made that money without all the trouble, and he could have still been the man, still ran things or whatever. Went and did his little 20 years with the state, carried that over, kept making money, put somebody else in position down there. But he don't think like a boss, because he was never a boss, never meant to be a boss. He was a sucker, and that's all that he is. They shut down Baltimore City Jail. They tore it down like 2015 or whatever. Larry Hogan had it torn down because there's been so much corruption. Like, even back in the day when I used to go there, it was pretty much wide open. Like I said, it was a scary place, but it was wide open. It wasn't as bad a situation when I was there as this incident that happened, because it wasn't nothing like this. Still was bad, but this was crazy. I mean, think about that. You get smart with a CO, you go to lock in your cell, you don't know no better. You could be from Atlanta or something. Just got locked up coming through here for a DUI or something. And, COs get on your nerves, because they will. And, getting smart with you, just treating you anytime. When you cuss her out or something, you go back to your cell that night, they're in there, ching, 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 ching. You're done. So that must have been a crazy situation. But anyway, like I said, when they grabbed him, he flipped. He's been home, probably in witness protection or whatever. Anybody know about the story of him suing for the Priia and getting the money? Please let me know in the comments if I was correct about that, if you heard the same thing, or if you've heard any different. And any of the details about this, because like I said, I wasn't there. I'm just going on my knowledge. And, I just read that article, but my knowledge and experience of what I've heard. You know what I mean? So any corrections or anything like that, feel free. All right, guys, until next time, just remember, always stand on business.